דובער הכהן בר is going to teach us הלכות in הלכות הבחירה. הרב בר, בבקשה. Before that, we have to do give tzedakah b'tzibur. Everybody should keep tzedakah.
The emphasis is say halach and hilchos based on the many halachas together, and unfortunately for myself and everyone else, I have more questions than I have answers. But at least to be matzia the shaylas, the Radvaz in Hilchos Ma'aser Korbanos brings down from the Sefer Kafta V'Ferach all the way at the end of Hilchos Ma'aser Korbanos that the din is that if somebody brings a korban b'chutz, so he's chayiv. When does that apply? When you would be able to bring a korban b'fnim. So the shayla comes, if there's no Beis HaMikdash, so then why should you be chayiv? Because you can't bring a korban. So he brings down the machlekes Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish, whether you're allowed to be makriv even though there's no Beis HaMikdash, and we pass on like Rabbi Yechon, and therefore you can bring a korban even if there's no Beis HaMikdash. He brings down over here from the Kafta V'Ferach. Kafta V'Ferach lived, let's say, up to 150 years after the Rambam. Maybe he was when the Jews were kicked out of France. He went to traveling different places, and he wrote down. It was a big Talmud Chacham, and he wrote down different things that he saw in different places. He ended up in Eretz Yisrael, and when he took his sefer to be looked over, there was a Reb Baruch over there who was looking over the sefer. And when he was talking with him, so he said, I think it was around 60 years before then, in the year 17 of the Elef HaShishi, so that was say around 100 years after the Rambam. So there was one of the Baal Teisves. So the gears that we have in the Kafta V'Ferach, the Rabbi Hanan of Paris. The Rabbi gives choice, there's a Rabbi Chil, there's more nofuts said in the name of Rabbi Chil of Paris, others say Rabbi Chaim, Akei of Paris, whoever it was, they went to Yerushalayim, they wanted to be Makar B'Korban. This Rabbi Baruch told the Kafta V'Ferach, and he said he was so muvovol and he was busy with the Sefer, that he didn't even think about it. Then he left and he says, what about everybody's telling me there's no paraduma, and he started with all of the shaylas, and he writes down over there Kafta V'Ferach. How could there be such a thing? L'maisa, that it seems that Chachmis, other Sfarim bring down that the Chachmi Yerushalayim wouldn't allow him to be makar of a korban, and there are many shaylas on that entire story. But the bottom line from all of these stories is that we see that after the 6-Day War in 1967, Tavshchav Zayin, after the 6-Day War, when they took over Har HaBayis, so the Rebbe told the Chassidim they should leave Yerushalayim, because according to Rabbi Chil Paris, you're allowed to bring a korban Pesach. Soon see why korban Pesach. You're allowed to bring korban Pesach. If you don't bring korban Pesach, you chayiv kares, v'chir of makom. So if you rich of makom, so then your potter, you have to bring Pesach Sheni. So the Rebbe said Pesach Sheni they should also leave Yerushalayim. Go with Chayshish. Now it's a kares, we should be Chayshish to the Shita Rabbi Chil Paris. You can bring the korban Pesach b'zman hazeh. Okay? So we see that no matter what the halachic objections were to his korban, so you could learn Pasha. The Rebbe said we don't need to understand all the svaras of the Baal Teisves. He knew what he was doing. He wanted to bring a korban, so he had, according to his understanding, something worked out. So it's machlekes rishonim. So you have to be chayshish is a kares. On the other hand, of the mishtadel, and many svarim are trying to mishtadel. What did he have in mind? What was his heter? So there are many issues that seem to have been solved. First of all, there's the union of a korban sibur. First of all, everybody's tummy without the paraduma, we all tummy mace. So the din is that tumah dechoya b'tzibur. So that eliminates already all korban yachid you can't bring, because tumah does not eliminate the idea of a korban yachid. You can't bring korban yachid to tumah. Korban tzibur you can bring to tumah. Korban tzibur you have other problems, because then you have to bring it from machzeh shekel. So we don't have machzeh shekel. So how exactly are you going to do that? So you can't do that either. So what do you come out with? Come out with left with Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach has aspects of both a Korban Yochid and a Korban Tzibur. Since it has a Zman Kavua as a din of a Korban Tzibur, and there is a Chuyev Tzibur. So therefore you can bring the Korban, the Korban, if the whole Tzibur is Tummy Tumas Mei, so then you can bring a Batuma. I don't know Machdesh, because the Korban Yochid, everybody has to pay for their own Korban Pesach, so that took care of that problem. There's no Beis HaMikdash, so the Rambam Pastins, they're Makrib, Machu B'Shein Shabbos, and they go one at a time to go and find for all the Shilas, and many there. Whole Svarim written on this subject, and especially after there was the Aliyah in the 150 years ago. So then there was a famous Sefer, the Rishasian. So he wrote on all different reasons why you should be able to try to convince Rothschild that they should bring Karbonis. So he had a whole plan, and he had a whole Sefer. He was in correspondence with Rabbi Kiva Eger, and some Sefer wrote, answering some of his tainas. It was a big pulmus that was going on at that time, and it continues ad hayem. But there's the one issue that seems to be the stickiest, unsolvable. There are many issues. There's the union of how do you have Kain? You have to have yichus for a Kain. Who has? You have to have a yichus back to somebody that was able to gabi mizbeach, where you can find the Kain and yichus. Then you have machlekes on the avnei. The avnei is shatnez. You have machlekes how to make it. So how you gonna do? So you have 2 days. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna put on both of them. I don't know how he has room. The avnei is so big. You can put on both versions of the avnei and be masne. If this one is kosher, the other one is not. Yeah, but it's shatnez. You can't do it too. One of them for sure wearing shatnez. It's only the deicha and it's a carbon. Anyway, found around all the problems with the techelis and what's the argom, all different problems. They found a way of everything. One problem remains, and that is that although you can bring a carbon without a Beis HaMikdash, you can't bring a carbon without a mizbeach. Need a mizbeach. Okay? Need a mizbeach. The Rambam says, right at the beginning of Perek Beis, Hilchos Beis Bechira, the Rambam has this whole Perek mostly about the mizbeach. The mizbeach mekemei mekuven beyeser, ve'ein meshanin eisei mimkeim l'leil. You cannot move the makom hamizbeach. So, how to build a mizbeach is one problem. So we have all of these midas, but we see that all of these things, even by the Bayis Sheni, and some of the Sfarim make a cheshbon. We say that there were 70 years between the Churban Bayis Rishon and the Binyan Bayis Sheni, but as far as the mizbeach, it was 52 years. That brings a cheshbon, Seder Aderes. It was 52 years. So there are people around today. Remember what happened? When was it? 52 years ago? This was Tavshin Lamed. People remember Tavshin Lamed. It was 52 years ago. You had Kainim around that served in the Beis HaMikdash, and they couldn't figure out what the Makom Mizbeach is. Nobody knew. So it says in the Gemara, and the Rambam brings down that they needed 3 Nevi'im. So the Gemara brings down in Zvachim, Daf Samach Beis, so it brings down that they saw different. How did they know it was the Makom Mizbeach when they came back over there? So one of them saw the Michal, the Malach Michal was bringing karbonis. Another one that you smelled, the whole place smelled like potatoes, and this place smelled like evarim, smelled like burnt meat. Different things that they saw. So then the Gemara brings down that there were 3 Nevi'im. Rashi says Chagai, Zachariah, and Malachi came up from Bavel, and the Rambam brings down over here. So that was halacha aleph. Halacha gimel midas hamizbeach mukavanas harbin. So it's a shini lashon over there. Lagabe the place it says mukuvan beyeser. Lagabe the measurements is mukuvanas harbe. Fine. And he says mizbeach shabonu b'nei agela came mizbeach shas libanas asu. So they built it similar to the one that it says in Yechezkel. Ve'ein laheis about midas v'ol ligrei mimenu. You can't add, you can't subtract. Then the next halacha shleish nevi'im all iman min agela. Echad heid lehen al makom mizbeach. One gave nevuah, which is the place in mizbeach. That took care of that problem. Echad heid lehen al midesa. The other one gave nevuah on the measurements. V'echad heid lehen shemakriven al mizbeach hazeh kol karbonos apol pishen shabbos. That Zadik Lashon. The Rebbe points out in Hilchot Sichas that the Rambam adds to the Lashon over here. Echad heid lehen shemakriven al mizbeach apol pishen shabbos. That's what it says in the Gemara. So the Rambam adds al mizbeach hazeh kol karbonos. So there has to be mamish on this mizbeach. The first time, what's going on over here? We have a lach, you have a machlekes right b'yei from Lashon. You're going to pass him according to a navi. And how is it you're going to determine the Makam HaMizbeach is a Mekuvanis B'Yeser, and then you Mekum B'Yeser, and then you're going to be paskin according to the Navi, and so to the Midas. So B'meili Yechezkel was given the Nevuah. Okay, so also a Navi is not allowed to be Machadish Davar. Anyway, the Gemara brings down that there is a maximum that was built in, that even though there was a tzivui that the Mizbeach, that Rambam gives all the cheshbenis, and the Moshe Rabbeinu was this size, and the Bayis Rishon was this size, and the Bayis Sheni, they added on, instead of 28 amas, they added on, it was 32 amas. So the Gemara brings down that the Midas, or the Mizbeach, has a maximum that was given. It cannot be more than 60 amas. It can't be more than 60 amas. So they decided to add, the Gemara gives a cheshbon, why is it that they decided to add on another 4 amas? Against the cheshbon, the Gemara brings in Zvach. Okay, so you're not allowed to change it. They made the Ben Gereya, but in the meantime they changed it. The Mishnah says in Midas that they changed it. All of Bnei Agela, the Mishnah says, right, the first Mishnah in Perek Gimel, which talks about the Mizbeach. So right over there in the Sefta Midas, there came the Bnei Agela, and they decided they're going to change the Midas. Yeah. Kishol Bnei Agela, Yisifol of Arba Ames Min Adavim, Arba Ames Min Amayrev, Kimin Gam, based on a pasuk in Yechezkel. Okay, so they figured at that part of the pasuk in Yechezkel, I figured out there's other things. The pasuk in Yechezkel, some things they changed, some things they didn't change. It says over there in Yechezkel, over there in the Perek Mem Gimel, that the Yisayid is supposed to be 2 amas high instead of 1 amma high. That they didn't change. So they added another 2, so there's different reasons to fit what it says in Yechezkel, that it was 12 amas beribua, so you needed 24 amas empty space over there for a maracha. In any case, Mefarshim say that in order to determine something factual, so that's not a problem, Teira L'Bashamayim. So the Navi says this is a piece of chelach. So then you're not allowed to eat it. We don't say Teira L'Bashamayim. The Rambam says the end of Hilchos Melachim, that the Mashiach is going to come, and with that Yo, the whole section of there about Yo, they're going to say he's been miyachas the Kainim and the Levim. L'chora Teira L'Bashamayim. So some of them are first machalik between the Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh, but Pashtus, if you're establishing a fact, so that has nothing, it's not a steer to the whole concept of the Teira L'Bashamayim. Shaila is makrim alpha b'shein bayis, so why did you need a navi for that? L'chora you have a machlekes and it's an inyan and Teira. But the Makam HaMizbeach, so that means that Rabbi Chil Paris was ready to make a Mizbeach to keep all of these things that look so complicated. How is Rabbi Chil Paris going to come in and build a Mizbeach and bring Chom Pesach? How in the world is he going to do such a thing? It says at the end of the Perek, so based on the Gemara, after giving the whole description about how to build it, and how to pour it, and the way that there's a Moshe Rabbeinu, the way it's Shalom Melech, then Halacha Yud Zayin, the end of the Perek Beis, Arba Kronish Shal Mizbeach, V'Yesodei, V'Ribuei, Ma'akiv. That what is Ma'akiv? You have to have the 4 corners on top, you have to have a Yesod, and it has to be square. And that's Ma'akiv. If you don't have that, it's possible. V'Kol Mizbeach Sh'Ein L'Karen, V'Yesei, V'Kevesh V'Ribua. Yeah. Harihu possible. It's very strange. Here the Ram lists 3 things which are ma'akiv. Okay, I guess that's the Mizbeach. And then there's a 4th thing, which is the kevish. Shabbat and ma'akiv, and all 4 of them are ma'akiv. You don't have a Mizbeach without these 4 things. Aval midas orke, midas rochbe, midas kimose, ain't a ma'akiv. But the measurements, after we went through this whole parak, and the Ram says, I want you to get it straight, because sometimes it's an amma, which is 6 tefachim. Sometimes it's an amma, 5 tefachim. So the Rambam makes a whole drawing over there, so you should know exactly where it's 5 and exactly where it's 6. It makes a cheshbon of how many tefachim it is. Fine. After the end, he said, well, this is not ma'akiv. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not allowed to be gerei, you're not allowed to be meisiv, but it's not ma'akiv if you don't do that. Yeah. So you can't have less than there was by Moshe Rabbeinu in the Midbar. So it comes out like this. And the Gemara darshans out that any time it says in Pasuk Ham Mizbeach with a Hey Yediyah, then it's Ma'akiv. Then the Gemara goes through, but it says over here Mizbeach, says here Mizbeach, and the Gemara answers why these things are not Ma'akiv. But it comes out that we had these 3 Nevi'im. Okay, so we took a Makriv Ma'av B'Shem Bayis. Fine. Then it says that one Navi spoke about Makam HaMizbeach, and one gave Nevuah about the Midas for the Mizbeach. When it comes to what's Ma'akiv, the Rambam says clear, since it doesn't say HaMizbeach, so it's not Ma'akiv. So what's the Makam HaMizbeach? It's Ma'akiv, it's not Ma'akiv. It's Mekuvim B'Yeser. And B'chlal, you go and you look in the Gemara, the whole Machlekes, about where was the Mokum HaMizbeach. You have a Machlekes Tanoim. Was it right in front of the Heichal? Was it on the south side of the Heichal? Was it on the north side of the Heichal? Machlekes. Frag the Chashayla, the Mokum is Mekuvim B'Yeser. How do you have Machlekes and Metzias? Where is it? So the Beis HaMikdash, Bein HaMikdash Ben Kamen, it has a place. So therefore, here, the Beis HaMikdash has a place. The Mizbeach also has a place. Now there's a Machlekes, how you fit these two things together. So but Pashas, the Rebbe's Medayik, the Rebbe doesn't bring a Lagabe this Inyan, but the Rebbe says the Mokum Mizbeach is Mekum B'Yeser. Whereas Beis HaMikdash, it says Bein HaMikdash Ben Kamen, it has to be Bahar Maria. So the Rebbe brings down, it's very interesting. And all of these people that are wandering around on Har HaBayis, because they know punct where the Azara is, or at least they know a place that's Azara free, where there's no such place. Because those that say Hurdas made the whole Har HaBayis much more than Takam al Takama. So where exactly was the Beis HaMikdash? Some say it was in the south, some say it was in the north, some say it was Mamlish in the middle, some say it was this side, that side. Whatever the Mokum you have on the Har HaBayis, there's a daya that says that's where it was. But the Rebbe brings down, but within the Takam, Al-Takam, doesn't say where the Beis HaMikdash has to be over there. Okay, so it has to be more from the south and less from the west. And Ram makes a cheshbon, but he didn't. So they were kaveya exactly where it is. So B'Meilis, it comes out according to Rebbe's beer that the Mokum and Mizbeach and Mekuvim B'Yeser. So the Mizbeach is put. Whether it's north or south of the Mizbeach, the way it's written is like you keep moving the Mizbeach, but it's not. You move the whole Beis HaMikdash to go around the Mizbeach. Because the Mizbeach comes out from the Rebbe's Mekuvim B'Yeser, and that has to be, this is the place, Mokum B'Yeser, Marish, and Neach, and the whole Arich at the beginning of the Perek. So therefore, if you want to say that it's in the north, the whole Beis HaMikdash has to be on this side. You say it's in the south, all the Beis HaMikdash you have to move to this side. They come twice from the Rebbe's beer, but this still doesn't solve our problem. How in the world is Rabbi Chila Paris, or whoever it was from Paris, how is he going to bring a carbon without a Mizbeach? Well, he's going to bring a Mizbeach. So the different Biyurim, each one has a problem. Each one has another problem, but just to be matzir. So there's the simple explanation is that it's not makif. So if you know where it is, then you build it there. And if not, you have to bring a carbon. You have to bring a carbon. You have a chiyuv to bring carbon pesach, otherwise you chayav kares. So you don't know where the place is, so it's not makif. Where do you get from the non makif? Because the Rambam at the end of the Perek, he says everything you have to do. Mekuvim B'Yeser are fine. But then he says, but it's not makif, so what are you supposed to do? If it's not makif and you don't know where it is, so you build it the closest you can. Because it's not makif. The Rambam doesn't say it's not makif. The Rambam said the midas are not makif. The size of the Mizbeach is not makif. What about Makam and Mizbeach? So back over here, the Nevi'im, it's Machad HaMachzor, the Gemara brings it down, that one Navi said about the place of the Mizbeach, the other Navi said about the measurements of the Mizbeach. So I want to say, so the same din, just like it doesn't say HaMizbeach by the Midas HaMizbeach, doesn't say HaMizbeach by the Makam HaMizbeach, so it's not makif. One text. We'll say the Terutzim, we'll have time to bring the Shlogs up all the Terutzim. That's one teretz is given. There's another teretz that it's a machlekes. Mechal we have in the Kloli Aposkim with these things normally we pass like the Rambam. We don't have Neisa Kalim don't say anything. But what happened in machlekes Rambam Aravet? So there are from the Kloli Aposkim many say that if a machlekes Rambam Aravet you pass like the Aravet. It depends what the other Mefarshim say, so on and so forth. One of the fundamental machlekes, the Radvaz over here in Hilchos the end of Meiser Karbonis, he said, how come in the world did he want to bring a carbon? Tamati al Meiser Zer. He said, how could he think? He says, this whole place is in the hands of the Goyim. How could he bring it? How could he think of bringing it? So he said, maybe then the Goyim were chayes, they were not in operation, whatever the case is, and they were not going to be makbid. He doesn't mention any of the Mokum HaMizbeach, but he says there's two Yesedes that you need in order to even think about this. Is one, you have to paskin that the Kitcher L'Shaita, Kitcher L'Asid Loving, okay, and the other is the Yemamakar Bafel Pishayin Shambayis. But Kitcher L'Asid Loving, the Raiva doesn't agree. The Raiva holds it's not Kitcher L'Asid Loving. Kitcher L'Asid Loving. So, one of the svaras that was brought is if so there's no Kedushin Har HaBayis now. No Kedushin Har HaBayis now. So that means there's no Inyan Miyuchad to be makriv over there. Then, according to the Rambam, once the Beis HaMikdash, the Rambam goes through the whole cheshbon about the Mishkan Shiloh and the Givin, and when it was mutar b'bama, and you don't need a mizbeach, you have to be bama. It doesn't. A bama is still a mizbeach, but it doesn't have all of the requirements of a mizbeach, and you can build it anywhere. You don't have to worry about makom a mizbeach. So according to the Ravid, they want to say, according to the Ravid, so then you can be makar on a bama. So we don't have to worry even about the makom a mizbeach. So good. So he decided to make it there. Doesn't say he can't make it there. So he passed. Maybe passing like the Ravid. The emphasis is the Tesis in Tmura Daf Chaf Aleph. And it's mashman from the Tesis over there that there's no problem bringing a korban bisman as there. There's an argument about the Tesis, but it's azul I should just have Tesis. Maybe holds like the Ravid. In any case, this is the Mavatal, the Sfar Mavatal Hakel Bakel. Why? Because Monofshach. So you want to say it's a bummer? So it's a bummer. You can't bring korban tzim on a bummer. You can't bring korban yochen on a bummer. So what are you going to go and be deicha betuma? Deicha betuma when? Was it because it's korban tzibur? They can bring on a bummer. Another test. A third general approach is that we'll figure it out. We'll figure out where it is. We have different signs. We have the Kesel. So you have a Radvaz. The Radvaz says that he knows it's the Maseda going all the way back. That the stone that the Muslims built their mosque on top of it, that is a Kedush Kadosh. It's Kedush Kadosh. You measure it. So anybody that's been to the case, the main part of the case is way down underneath. So like what's coming over the surface over there is way high up. And B'chlal, the size of that rock is bigger than the whole Kedush Kadoshim. Does it say that's the rock? Plus the Cheshbenis from the Radvaz, there's two different places that Radvaz writes about in Shuvas, and they don't really match. And you make the Cheshbenis, you start counting from the Kesel. So there's a machlekes where the Kesel is the wall of the Harabayas or the wall of the Yazhara, and it doesn't make sense according to either one. So those who want to say that's really that rock is the Mizbeach. It's not the Kedush Kadoshim either. Okay, but the side of all their problems, like the same people that are going around walking on Harabayas because they say they know where things are. So we'll measure. We'll measure. We're so smart we can measure. They weren't so smart in the days of the Bayis Sheni when they came back, and the Gemara says that Rambam Paskins that we need a Navi to tell you. So if you just take out a stick and measure, so why do you need a Navi to tell you the Makam HaMizbeach? Take out a tape measure and measure. There's this wall, there's that wall. So it says different. Then was Oro Adi Yesodba, that they destroyed everything with no trace of the walls. It looks from there's a Rashi. Zvachim looks like Rashi doesn't necessarily agree with that, but anyway, those that say there was no wall, so there was no remnant, they didn't have the choice. But now we have a way of measuring, so we'll figure it out. You measure over there, and this is the rock. The dome of the rock is the Kedush Kadoshim. Which side of the rock are you going to measure from? It doesn't exactly make too much sense. Another svara, very interesting svara, Sefer called Karnas HaMizbeach, goes through all different shittas. There's a heart over there. He says, he was bothered by this thing, and he went. He said, I have to learn something. So he opened up a Gemara. It was like a gadol. He opened it up, and he opened up to Zvachim Samachal. He said one of the things that they changed by the Bayis Sheni is that it says Mizbach Adom Tasali. So you had to fill it up with earth. That's by Meisher Rabbeinu. So the shaila is. Can you build it Agaba Keeping? Because the whole Harabayas Bachlal was built because of Tumas HaTahem. They built on top of arches, so it should be empty underneath, so people shouldn't be walking on top of Tumas HaTahem. So there be a Pesach Tefach, you have empty Tefach, so it's not matami anybody that's on the ground. But the Mizbeach is not allowed to be on that. The Mizbeach has to be on solid ground. So he says, push it, take a shovel, pick up the floor, start digging, and if you find something, but there's nothing underneath, that's Makom HaMizbeach, because the rest of the place, the only place that didn't have underneath Mechilas, but they're keeping, Agaba Keeping, so the truth is the Dirish Hasiyan wrote this Eitzah. There's a little problem, they're not going to let us dig up over there so fast, but today, they've done, the Rambam brings down the Rebbe, famous Seichel from the Rebbe, that the place that again is the Orden, the time of Bayis Rishon, so how you're allowed to move the Orden, the Rebbe touched that place was l'chatchila, it's part of the Beis HaMikdash, that was part of the plan, that it should be hidden away. So there were early archaeologists that did digging. There was one that went digging over there, one of these old English archaeologists, and he dug under the rock over there in the mosque until he threw him out, and he found a cave underneath. He found an open area, he moved away, and there was a cave, and he went to the cave, and then he found another cave, and then they kicked him out. But the archaeologists come in, they have with different sorts of sounding equipment that you can put down sound waves and different types of waves and map out what's going on under the ground. So there's maps now of which places are empty and which places are not empty. So it comes out according to that. You can figure it out by seeing which part is not gabe keeping. But nobody's done it, and it's not clear whether you'll find more than one place and what exactly you're going to do. But one thing we see, it's just interesting that the Machane Mikdash, in the old city, they built, everything should be ready, that the Gula comes now, they will have big dekuna and there's kateras, they have everything over there. There's a whole argument on many of these things that they made a Meneda that's ready to go, except that it's a curved Meneda. So I once visited over there, spoke with the Rabbanim over there. These guys know the Rebbe Sikha inside out. It's not like every ha'ara, they know the whole thing. They disagree, okay, and their proofs not very strong, not pinigla either. But in any case, they have everything which is ready to go. So what are they going to do with the Mizbech? Lamed Beis Amis, the whole building is not that big. And then how are you going to schlep it? And it has to be built with the, Rama gives the whole Seder over there. You have to have a construction team to go and pour the cement and the stones and everything like that. How are you going to build it? So they said, built on this Rambam, they've made only the parts of the Makif. Then it cannot be smaller than the Mizbeach Sheba Midbar. So they built the Mizbeach the size of Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach. Okay, and they made it Rabua, and they made it with Krones, and they made it with Yisod, and they said B'di'evet until we build a real one that it's ready to go. Okay, I'm not giving any paskama to them, only with the psach, the general, and who knows what they found chelis, and they found this, and they found that. All of these things that Rabbi Rashab said, it's clear from Al-Pi Kabbalah that there will be no chelis until the time of Geula, then there'll be Tchelis, so that's what he did. There was not Tchelis. Why? Because we have that Pikabala. We know there's no Tchelis until that time, so it doesn't have to go when there's on Eben Shepim with the Rizn, that Pachavi all the time. The kid said that we did this, that the Rebbe, then later on, when they gave up the Bailis to Harabayis and they gave it back, so the Rebbe said, okay, now it's you don't have to worry. You don't have to leave Yerushalayim now, because now we can't do it anymore either. But it's just interesting. It's a davar sichli. You know, if you're in control of Harabayis, so then Rabbi Chila Paris or one of his descendants can come be makar of a carbon. Okay, but and now that they won't let you, so you don't have to leave Yerushalayim. But this is beferish in the Radbaz. He says, what the legabedinyan shchut chutz. He says, how is it possible to bring the fnim if the goyim don't let you? But if the goyim do let you, so then already since it's efsher lahavi b'fnim, so therefore you chayev and shchut chutz mibachutz, so that means it's efsher, and it's efsher. You don't have makom b'mizbech. Weißt du, it's nicht ma'akev or one of the other terutzim. Pesach nish, but then lachach.
Just to remind everybody, following Shilas Arvis, there will be a Siyum Maseches.